The night was as bright as ink, and the mountain gates of the Haoyu family were swallowed by flames, swelling up to the sky. The originally majestic mountain retreat had long been broken, turning into a sky and falling. The family disciples fled in scattered areas, but one of them was chased and killed. In the lush valley, the light of the spirit stone mine is still dazzling, but now, this area once belonged to Haoyu's family is firmly occupied by a group of black-robed monks. Zhenxiong. You are such an old man. I will be filled with my family's minerals. Today's hatred will be reported. A young man roared, his voice full of pain and unwillingness. His white robe was stained with blood. He held a cracked long sword in his hand, half kneeling in front of the mountain gate, staring at the middle-aged man in a golden robe in arrogant manner. Zhenxiong sneered, and a spirit was storming under his feet, and a giant war bell in his hand emitted terrifying power. He looked down at the boy, his words filled with mockery. Avenge? You can't even stand up, and you dare to speak wildly? This spirit stone mine is a powerful thing. You Haoyu's family can't keep it. Who can't blame? Today, I will send you to gather with your dead godparents. Before the words were finished, several black-robed monks behind Zhenxiong took action at the same time, and their spirit turned into several sharp blades, pointing directly at the young man. The boy bit his teeth tightly, reluctantly lifted up, swung his blade in his hand, and forced himself to attack several times, but the next moment, a stronger spiritual blade directly penetrated his shoulder, and blood spurted out. Young Master Haoyu, run away. Stay Green Mountains here, don't be afraid of no firewood. A veteran Pinja roared with a last flick of force from a long distance. With his last breath, he swept a broken anti-surgery method and gave the young man a fatal blow. But the next second, his body was smashed into a bloody fog by a giant horn, and even his soul could not escape. Old butler! The boy's eyes were about to split, his fists were tightly clamped, his nails were deeply embedded in his palm, and blood dripped down his fingers. He knew that if he didn't leave, he would really have no chance. Gripping his teeth tightly, he turned around suddenly, dragging the heavy wound, and stumbled towards the dense forest behind the mountain. Want to run away? Chase me. You won't let go of anyone. Zhenxiong snorted coldly, and waved his hand to signal the black-robed monk behind him to chase and kill him. He stood in front of the mountain gate, his eyes swept coldly over the ground, and a silenced smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Haoyu family, from today, will be removed from the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. This spirit stone mine is ultimately my bag. In the dense forest, Haoyu stumbled and ran, the wound on his shoulders kept bleeding, his power almost dry, and every step was like stepping on the tip of a knife. His brain kept flashing through the scenes of his family being slaughtered, his father's roar, his mother's cry, and the old housekeeper's cry before his death. Every scene was like a knife tug at his heart. Zhenxiong, Zhenxiong. He gritted his teeth, and a huge hatred ignited in his eyes. If I don't die, I will definitely kill you with blood. But at this moment, a sudden breaking voice came from behind, and several black-robed monks had already chased him. They were powerful and very fast, and they pulled the distance closer in almost the blink of an eye. Boy, I can't escape. Be obedient and die. The head monk in the black robe sneered, flipped his palm, and a lightning light gathered and slashed hard at Haoyu's back. Haoyu felt nervous and he was reluctant to hide from his side, but the lightning was rubbing against his arm, and his skin instantly charred, and the pain made him almost faint. He knew that he could not escape these people at all, and his inner spirit was almost exhausted, and he could not even use the most basic defense method. Is it hard to tell, I'm really going to die here? Haoyu was filled with hope, and he fell to the ground with a slight fall. The black-robed monk in the back saw the scene and laughed at him, gathering his spirit in his hands, ready to give him a fatal blow. But just as he was wearing a hair, Haoyu suddenly felt a stinging pain in his brain, as if something was being torn and opened. His eyes suddenly felt hot, and a strange force stormed out of his pupils, and everything in front of him became unusually clear. The trees, grass, leaves, and even the spirits flowing in the air were clearly visible. What shocked him even more was that the flow of power around the black-robed monks, and even the attack route they were about to take, became incomparable in his eyes, as if they had been dismantled into a line with no secrets. What power is this? Haoyu was shocked and he was almost subconsciously whispering. But he had not had time to think about it yet, and a vast stream of information suddenly flooded into his brain, like some ancient inheritance, which was directly poured into his divine consciousness. The divine eyes of the Tao, the gods awaken. Seeing through all the methods, creating an enemy. A continuous sound echoed in his brain. Afterwards, a warm force spread from his eyes to his whole body, and the originally exhausted spiritual power began to slowly recover. Yangdao divine eyes? Haoyu murmured, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. Although he didn't fully understand the power's experience, he just told him that this might be his only life. Boy, are you fucking me in a daze? Death. The black-robed monk stopped walking, and thought he had given up his resistance. He immediately sneered and swung out a spirit blade and took Haoyu's throat. But this time, Haoyu was not panicked. His eyes narrowed slightly, and a golden light flashed through his pupils, instantly seeing through the spine and weakness of the spirit blade. He flashed his body suddenly, and the spirit blade almost rubbed against his neck, unable to hurt him at all. What? The black-robed monk was stunned, obviously not expecting that a seriously injured boy could avoid his attack. Haoyu ignored the other party's surprise. His eyes swept quickly around and the rapid flight in the sea of brain began. The Atlas God's eye not only allowed him to see through the enemy's attack, but also gave him an extremely sensitive perception of the spiritual flow in the surrounding environment. He discovered that at several points of spiritual gathering in the dense forest, it formed a natural form of air. Since you can't escape, then, fight. Haoyu bit his teeth and quickly took out a few broken stones from the dead. This was the last thing he took from the old butler in front of the family door. Although these stones are damaged, there is still a piece of spiritual power inside, which can be used hard. He flew fast to seal with both hands, golden light flashing in his eyes, and a simple killing structure was instantly outlined in the sea of brain. This method of the silence is not complicated, and can even be said to be rough, but with the blessing of the divine eyes of the silence, he forced the natural spirit around him to combine with the stones and set up a temporary silence killing. Come on, let you try my tricks. Haoyu shouted softly and suddenly embedded the last stone into the ground. The next moment, with him as the center, the spirit within 10 feet of the square suddenly stormed, turning into countless invisible spirits, and heading towards the black-robed monk who was chasing him. What kind of ghost thing is this? The head monk in black robe did not react. His foot suddenly became tight, and his soul tied his legs like a rope, and his spirit was instantly broken. He was shocked and wanted to take it off, but he found that the spirit in the spirit had a sharp killing, which pierced directly into his veins. He screamed in pain and fell to the ground on the spot. Several other monks in black robes saw this and stopped walking, showing a look of shock on their faces. Although their cultivation is higher than Haoyu, they have never seen such a strange method. The spirit can actually turn into a killing weapon, not to be able to defend. This kid, will he fight? A black-robed monk was shocked, his words were full of incredible. In the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm, although the martyr is rare, each one is an extremely difficult existence, especially those who can distribute the martyr in a scene, which is even more unique. What are you afraid of? He is just a severely damaged waste. No matter how strong his weapon is, it will not take long to kill him. Another black-robed monk gritted his teeth and rushed over. The power in his hand condensed into a long gun, stabbing Haoyu's chest. Haoyu sneered, and the golden light flashed again in his eyes. The Taoist divine eyes instantly saw through the opponent's attack path. Instead of resisting, he quickly turned his head, and at the same time, his fingers popped out and a spirit shot out from the air, accurately hitting the other party's wrist, and the long gun snatched the hand on the spot. How is that possible? The black-robed monk had not reacted yet. Haoyu had already lifted the slap on the ground, poured it into it with his power, and suddenly pierced the other party's chest. The blood spurted out, and the monk widened his eyes and fell down unwillingly. As a killer, Haoyu gasped, his face turned pale, and his inner spirit almost dried up again. but a light of hope ignited in his eyes. This was the first time he really killed an enemy, and it was also the first time he felt the terrifying power of the God Eye of the Way. Run, run! This kid is very evil. The remaining monks in black robe dared to continue chasing and killing them, and turned around and fled. But how could Haoyu let them go? He sealed again in the air, and the spirit spread out like a net, forcing the last few people to fall down, and then he added a knife one by one, without any escape. In the dense forest, the smell of blood spread. Haoyu half kneeled on the ground, his hands were slamming against the ground, and his breathing was extremely heavy. He looked at the earthly bodies, and there was a complex emotion in his eyes, both the pleasure of killing the enemy and the reluctance to his own weakness. Xinxiong, this is just the beginning. He murmured in a low voice, his eyes firmly like iron. Today's humiliation and family hatred, I, Haoyu, will give this spirit stone mine back one day. The night wind blew, the leaves rustled, Haoyu dragged his wounds, stood up, and walked towards the deep forest. Although his back was alone, he was filled with an unyielding will, as if he had predicted that a rise of his destiny was about to begin. In the deep forest, Haoyu dragged his scarred body and finally found a hidden cave before dawn. He simply handled the wound on his shoulders, sat down on his knees, and closed his eyes and adjusted his breath. The spirit power in his body flowed slowly, and the strange power brought by the divine eyes of the Tao made his recovery faster than ordinary people, but the bloody storm in the brain could not be eliminated. I'm too weak. If I don't become stronger, revenge is just empty talk. Haoyu clenched his fists tightly, and a hint of determination flashed in his eyes. He knew that Xinxiong was very powerful and he didn't even care about his current strength. The most urgent thing is to find a safe place to fall, hide your name, and practice your mind. A few days later, Haoyu changed into a coarse cloth dress to cover his original face and came to a small town beside the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. This place is far away from the core of the spirit mineral, and the strength of the fairy gate is relatively weak, suitable for his low-key development. He heard that there was a small sect outside the city called Qingyun sect. Although it was not in the ordinary, he was accused of casual cultivators and down-and-out children, so he decided to try his luck. Qingyun sect is located in a thin valley with a dilapidated mountain gate. The mountains and valleys are just the most basic mists, which are like virtual design. Haoyu stood in front of the mountain gate, secretly sniffing in his heart. Such a clan was not worthy of being able to carry shoes in Haoyu's family during the heyday. But now, he doesn't have any choice. Stop! Who is coming? In front of the mountain gate, two disciples guarding Haoyu were slapped, looking at him up and down, with a little disdain in their temperament. Haoyu lowered his head and clasped his fists, and replied with a voice, in the Shaolin Feng, a casual cultivator, I heard the talented people of Qingyun sect, and came to surrender, hoping that my brother would be able to do it. Scattered cultivator? One of the doorguard disciples sneered and looked at Haoyu's broken clothes. Look at your sourness, and you also want to enter our Qingyun sect? I'm so angry. The sect trial is about to be around recently, but there are some misfortunate disciples. I'll hand over 10 low-grade spirit stones and let you go in. Haoyu felt nervous. He had used all the spirit stones on his body for a long time, and he couldn't even take out a piece of them. But he didn't show any voice on his face and bowed, My brother, I'm really penniless, but I'm a little bit sarcastic about my practice. Maybe I can serve the sect, so I'll give it an opportunity. Going? The two doorguard disciples looked at each other and laughed. You are the only one? A casual cultivator dares to tell you how to do it. Going masters are rare in the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm, and even our sect leader is not proficient. Don't brag like this. If you don't interfere with the spirit stone, just slay it. Haoyu had a slight eyebrows, and he felt a little upset, but he knew that it was not the time to show off his power. At this moment, a crisp female voice came from the mountain gate. Hey, Brother Lu, Brother Wang, are you newcomers again? Didn't the sect leader say that the trial is about to come? Will anyone refuse? Let him come in. Haoyu looked in the sound and saw a girl wearing a light green dress walking out. She was so pretty, with both eyes moving, holding a small elixir in her hand, and a smell of medicine was secretly emitted from her body. When the two disciples guarding her saw her, Lima changed her face and said, "Sister Yaling, aren't you afraid that some people will come in? Our Qingyun sect is still a regular sect at least. Haoyu, take him to register." The girl glared at them, then turned to look at Haoyu, showing a curious smile. "Your name is Lin Feng? I just heard you say you can fight. Is it true?" Haoyu's heart moved and said, "I understand a little bit. If I have the chance, I will be willing to serve the sect." The girl's eyes turned and she smiled and said, "That's great. I am Yaling, the elixir of Qingyun sect. I am missing a helper recently. Our sect is very scarce. If you are really capable, I can say a few good words to you. Let's go, and see the elders with me first." Haoyu didn't expect the other party to be so enthusiastic. After a slight moment, he hurriedly said thank you and followed Yaling into the mountain gate. On the way, Yaling chattered like a little sparrow and asked non-stop, "Hey, Lin Feng, where are you from? How can you do it? I heard that it is difficult to be a wise master. If you don't move, you will blow yourself to death. Have you ever blown yourself?" Haoyu was helpless when she asked, so he had to do whatever he wanted. "I have learned a few skills from an old teacher since I was a child. I can hardly set up some simple methods. I didn't blow it up, but I was often burnt black with electricity." "Ha ha, that's so funny." Yaling smiled and pointed at Haoyu. "You are quite interesting. Don't worry, when you arrive at Qingyun sect, as long as you don't cause trouble, no one will be difficult for you. I just happen to be short of someone who helps me test pills, so let's cooperate more in the future." Haoyu heard the meaning of her trial, smiled slightly, and said nothing more. He knew that in this kind of small sect, practical strength is the foundation, and no matter how much it is better to act in actual practice. Under the guidance of Yaling, Haoyu successfully passed the assessment of the elders and became a miserable disciple of the Qingyun sect. He was assigned to the back mountain to fight the trouble, and was usually responsible for cleaning the spiritual fields, and occasionally helped Yaling to try new elixir. Although his life was hard, he was so happy that he was very happy and took advantage of the time to study the methods. With the blessing of the divine eyes of the Tao, Haoyu's understanding of the Taoist Dharma was far faster than that of ordinary people. He borrowed several basic scriptures from the sect's collection of books, and in just a few days he would enter the level of mist and spiritual harmony, and even began to explore the structure of the intermediate killing. Every time he was in a quiet night, he would practice cloth with a stone tablet in a secret corner behind the mountain. The eyes of the Taoist divine eyes allowed him to see through the flaws in the magic method in an instant and make rapid progress. This 1,000-scale killing is indeed not simple. It turns out that the spirit turns into a silk, which can be trapped or killed. If it can be improved a little more, its power will definitely double. One night, Haoyu sat on a bluestone with his knees, his eyes were filled with golden light, and the pieces of the spirit stone in his hand emitted a faint light. He constantly deduced the structure of the stylist in his brain, sweating and full of his face. At this moment, I didn't come far away and smiled. "Yi, Lin Feng, I don't sleep for the middle of the night, what are you playing here? Can a stone slaughter be used to spread the silhouette? You really save it." Haoyu was surprised and looked up. He saw Yaling standing nowhere with a smile on her arms. He hurriedly put away the spirit stone, stood up and said, "Sister Yaling, why are you still outside so late?" "It's not because someone tried old Dan to secretly care, I had to work overtime to take medicine myself." Yaling curled her lips, then came over, and looked at the marks of the storm on the ground curiously. "Hey, what kind of storm is this? It looks quite complicated. How can you really disguise the storm?" Haoyu smiled and said, "Just trying it with your hands is nothing." Yaling's eyes turned, and suddenly took out a bottle of pill from the bottom of her body and stuffed it into Haoyu's hand. "Come on, don't be fooled. This is a newly defeated spirit-gathering pill that can speed up the recovery of spiritual power. I'll give it to you. But you have to answer me, help me when trying it out. Our Qingyun sect's trial is not simple. If your method is really effective, you may be able to get a good ranking." Haoyu took the pill and felt warm. He pointed and said, okay, if there is a chance, I will definitely not disappoint my sister. A few days later, the annual trial of Qingyun's sect officially began. The content of this trial is to enter the forbidden area of the back mountain, kill the spirit beast, and collect the spirit grass. Those with the highest score can receive the sect reward, and even have the chance to be promoted to an inner disciple. Although Haoyu is just a mess, he has also obtained the qualification for the competition with Yeling's guarantee. In the trial, the spirit was full of depression and danger. As soon as Haoyu entered the forbidden area, he felt several unhappy gazes. He avoided the crowd in a low voice, went deep into the forest alone, and used the eyes of the Taoist divine eyes to quickly discover the trace of a second-level spirit beast, the red flame wolf. This spirit beast has rough skin and thick flesh, and its strength is comparable to that of the late stage of the condensation realm. It is a great threat to ordinary disciples. It's just right, try my new bay with you. Haoyu's mouth slightly, and he quickly laid a 1,000-scale killing ball around him. His eyes were flashing with golden light, his fingers flew fast and sealed, and his spirit turned into countless fine silks, hidden in the grass, almost unlimited. Later, he deliberately made a static move and attracted the red flame wolf. The spirit beast roared and rushed in, and stepped into the ambush with 1 foot. The spirit instantly scattered its limbs, and the sharp killing intention pierced directly into the flesh and blood. The red flame wolf roared in a row, and the more he slapped, the more he was tightened, and finally he was killed by Haoyu, and his points were easily obtained. This 1,000 killings are really easy to use. If there are a few more spiritual stones, their power will be even greater. Haoyu put away the inner pill of the spirit beast and felt secretly happy. He continued to go deep into the forbidden area, using the benefits of the method of war, and connected the number of killings, and his points rose rapidly. On the 3rd day of the trial, Haoyu accidentally met an inner disciple of Qingyun's sect, Zhang Hao, in the depths of the forbidden area. This person has achieved a full cultivation level of energy and a strong personality. He is a ruthless character in the sect. He saw that Haoyu, a miserable disciple, had a good score, and immediately stopped at the way with a sneer. Even a troubled soldier dares to get points? Hand over the inner pill of the spirit on your body, otherwise don't blame me for taking ruthless actions. Zhang Hao held a long sword in his hand, and his spirit was swept, and his energy was so strong that he was forced. Haoyu had a slight eyebrows and said lightly, "Brother Zhang, the test rules are about abilities to get points. The inner pill is my personal hand. What should I give to you? What are you going to hate? Just beating me better than you." Zhang Hao snorted coldly, and his long sword slapped directly at Haoyu, striking his head fiercely. Haoyu's eyes turned cold and he quickly retreated. At the same time, he used his 2 hands to seal the enemy's attack path in an instant. He rushes under his feet and quickly lays a 1,000-sized killing ground around him. Zhang Hao stepped into the ambush, and when he felt his limbs being depleted by invisible force, his sword's aura was weakened by most of his energy, he quickly roared, "What kind of ghost thing is this? I guessed it right, but unfortunately I didn't get a reward." Haoyu sneered, his fingers popped, and the spirit tightened suddenly, piercing Zhang Hao's penis, causing him to sweat in a cold sweat. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Haoyu pulled out the blade and poured it into it with his power. A blade stabbed the other side's shoulder, forcing Zhang Hao to abandon the knife and beg for a fight. Don't kill me. I don't want the inner pill anymore, I'll kill me." Zhang Hao's face turned pale, his eyes were full of shock. He never thought that a misfortuned disciple could use military skills to force himself to the extreme. Haoyu coldly took back the sword and said lightly, "Come on, come and find fault next time, don't blame me for being cruel." Zhang Hao crawled away from the ground and fled. Haoyu put away the other party's long sword as a spoil, and said in his heart, "These 1,000 killings are indeed harmful. Even the vast air is full of the air condensation realm can be trapped. If you advance more, the road to revenge will definitely be further improved." After the trial, Haoyu was promoted to a disciple of the inner door with a high score, and his reputation was quickly spread within the Qingyun sect. Many disciples discussed the debate, calling him a genius of Qin, and even Yaling couldn't help but be surprised. Lin Feng, you are really hiding deeply. If I had known that you were so bad, I would have brought you into the group as soon as possible. Haoyu smiled, without much explanation, just returned to the back mountain to continue to cultivate his body. However, he didn't know that the performance in the trial had been secretly transmitted. Far away from the core of the spirit mining, Jin Xiong's power received a secret report. Qingyan sect? Is a miserable disciple proficient in military skills? Jin Xiong sat in the hall, his eyes coldly swept over the jade in his hand, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. No matter who you are, if you dare to harm me, you will definitely be burial. Come and check the details of Lin Feng. I want to see who he is. In Qingyan sect, Haoyu knew nothing about the crisis that was about to come. He sat on the back mountain with his knees, holding a new stone in his hand, his eyes flashing with golden light, and deducing a stronger killing in his brain. The night wind blew over, the shadows of trees swayed, and his figure seemed lonely and determined, as if predicting that a greater storm was about to come. The night was drooping, and the spirit of the mountain behind Qingyan sect was slightly flowing in the darkness. Haoyu sat on his knees on a blue stone, holding several spiritual stones of inferior quality in his hands, and his eyes were flashing with a faint golden light. He was deducing a brand new structure of armor, 1Z killing yen. This method is more complex than his previous 1000-scale killing scale. The number and killing force of the energetic scale have been increased several times. If it can be successfully deployed, it will be enough to kill the strongest person in the early stage of the foundation. The quality of the spirit stone is too poor, and it can only support the shape of the swaying method. Haoyu glanced at his eyebrows and said in a low voice. Although he won the status of a disciple of the inner gate during his trial, the resources he earned from the sect were too small, and these low-grade spirit stones could not meet his needs for cultivating the Dharma. At this moment, a quick stomp sound came from afar, accompanied by a familiar crisp voice. Hey, Lin Feng, are you hiding here again to cheer up your way? I heard, you beat Zhang Hao, that guy, and you were so angry when you tried to get some teeth. Haoyu looked up and saw that it was indeed Yaling. She held a small elixir, had a habitual ancient and eccentric smile on her face, and was carrying a cloth bag in her hand, so bulging that she didn't know what she was wearing. Sister Yaling, are you having something to do with me so late? Haoyu stood up and patted the dust on his body, carrying a warning in his language. Although he was in harmony with Yaling, deep down he dared not fully trust anyone. Look at your guardianship, can I still harm you? Yaling curled her lips and threw the cloth bag to Haoyu. Here, this is a batch of spiritual pills in my new factory, and a few bottles of rejuvenation pills that have been damaged. I'm giving you a gift. Recently, there are many people in the sect who have discussed you. I guess you have been troubled and the points are always in trouble. Haoyu took the cloth bag and realized that there were indeed more than 10 bottles of elixirs in it, with good quality. For his disciples who lack resources, it was simply a timely help. He was slightly stunned, looked up at Yaling, and a hint of gratitude flashed in his eyes. Sister, this gift is too heavy, Don't let mother-in-law and mother, just accept it. Yaling slapped her hand, slammed him, then moved closer, and said in a low voice, but I'm not giving it to you for nothing. I heard that you are so powerful. Recently, I plan to go to the forbidden area to pick up some rare spirit grass. If there is a lack of protective lens, you have to accompany me. Haoyu heard the meaning of her trial, smiled, and pointed. Okay, my sister is destined to be successful. The two were talking, and suddenly a sudden burst of sound came from far away, and then several powerful waves of spirit quickly approached from outside the Qingyan sect. Haoyu's heart was tightened, and the eyes of the Tao opened instantly, and the golden light in his pupils flashed. The scene far away became clearer and clearer in his eyes. 7 or 8 black-robed monks were rushing straight towards the back mountain, each of whom was above the early stage of the foundation, and the leader even reached the middle stage of the foundation, and the aura was domineering. No, it's me. Haoyu's face changed and he said to Yaling in a low voice, Sister, you go back to the sect first. Those who come here are not good, I'll deal with it. What? Come and find a troublesome person? Yaling was stunned and pouted immediately, "I won't leave. After all, I'm in the late stage of the condensation state. If I can't help you, I can still give you elixirs. Don't waste it, think about it quickly." Haoyu saw her persistence and said no more. He quickly pulled her into the secret bush in the mountain behind him. At the same time, he flew with both hands to seal and rush, setting a temporary mist around him. Although this magic has limited power, it can temporarily cover their breath and fight for some preparation. Afar, the monks in black robe had landed in the back mountain. The middle-aged man in the head looked around, and his eyes were filled with a hint of coldness. He held a long black halberd in his hand, his voice was low and cold. "The boy named Lin Feng is nearby. The leader of Zheng has an order and will kill him if he fights. He will never allow him to grow up. Search." "Yes." Several black-robed monks behind him said in a singular voice, and immediately scattered, covering the entire mountain like a net, trying to find Haoyu's hiding place. Haoyu hid in the bush and heard the 3 words Xingzhu. His pupils suddenly shrank, his fists were tightly clamped, and his nails were almost embedded in his palms. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Xingxiong. It's you. Are you going to find me so soon?" Yaling saw that he looked unrighteous and asked in a low voice, "Lin Feng, who are these people? What trouble did you mess with?" Haoyu slammed his head and said in a low voice, "It's not time to explain. These people are too high in cultivation. I'm not sure if I fight hard. I must have a counterattack. Sister, help me delay for a while. I need time to prepare a killing." "Procrastinate? Why should I delay?" Yaling was stunned, but when Haoyu looked calm, she didn't ask any more questions. She took out a few pills from the bottom and stuffed them into her mouth. Then she said in a low voice, "Okay, I'll try it, you hurry up." Before she finished speaking, she suddenly burst out from the bushes, and a group of green poisonous fog sprayed towards the nearest black-robed monk. The monk was caught off guard and was covered by a poisonous fog. He coughed at the same time, and his spiritual movement was a bit devastating. "Who?" The middle-aged man in the head shouted angrily, and his long halberd blew, and his power turned into a wild wind, directly blowing away the poisonous fog. His eyes swept, and soon locked Yaling and sneered, "Little girl, looking for death. Tell me, where's that Lin Feng?" Yaling pretended to be shocked and quickly stepped back, saying no one was afraid of saying goodbye. "What Lin Feng? I don't know you. You guys entered Qingyun sect, are you afraid that our sect leader will make a fortune to you? Humph, do you dare to be enemies with us if you break the Qingyun sect? If you don't tell me, I will tear you." The middle-aged man snorted coldly, with a finger of the long halberd in his hand, and his power condensed into a ray of light, stabbing Yaling directly. Yaling was shocked and hurriedly avoided the flash, and at the same time, she released a few poison pills to reluctantly delay the opponent's attack. Although she is not weak in cultivation, the other party is actually in the middle stage of the foundation, and the gap in strength is too big. After a few rounds, she is already a little bit furious. At this time, Haoyu hid behind the bushes, and the speed of his double-handed sealing was extremely fast. The divine eyes of the Aquarius opened with all their might, and the flying speed in the sea of brain deduced the structure of one ZZ, killing the Aquarius. The few low-quality spirit stones in his hand were urged by the power of spirit, emitting a faint light, and the spirit turned into countless fine pieces, spreading quietly around without any sound. "It's still a little bit, hold on for a while." Haoyu gritted his teeth and sweated. This scattered killing is the strongest way he can set up at present, but it consumes a lot of energy and divine consciousness. With his extensive cultivation of the condensation realm, it is difficult to support him. At this moment, Yaling finally couldn't hold back. The middle-aged man's long halberd swept, and his spirit rushed wildly, shaking her, flying for several feet, hitting her on a big tree, and a silk of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. She gritted her teeth and took out a bottle of elixir from the wound, stuffed it into her mouth, barely calming her wounds, and could no longer delay. "Humph, little girl, her mouth is quite hard. Since I don't say it, then die." The middle-aged man sneered, his long halberd was high, and he was ready to give him a fatal blow. Stop! Just as Qianlong's hair was about to break, Haoyu suddenly stood up from the bushes, his voice low and cold. His eyes were flashing with golden light, and his fingers swept, and the last piece of spirit stone was embedded in the ground, and the filaments were instantly formed. Within 30 feet of the square, the spirit was violent and countless fine pieces rolled out like living things, and walked towards the monks in black robe. What? The middle-aged man was shocked, and his long halberd suddenly swept, trying to break the spirits, but these spirits were extremely strange. The spirits dissipated as soon as they touched and condensed quickly, instantly sucking his legs, and even pierced into the veins, bringing intense pain. Other monks in black robe were also caught in the attack. The spirits were like nets, trapping them so hard that they could not be moved. The murder continued to invade their spiritual shield, and their cry came one after another. This is... Are you a... The middle-aged man's face changed drastically, staring at Haoyu with disbelief. He never expected that a small disciple in the condensation realm could set up such a terrifying murder, and even he was trapped in the middle stage of the Qingji. Haoyu sneered, sniffed his sword in his hand, and his spirit was poured into it, with a silence in his eyes. Since you are here, don't leave. Xingxiong's lackey, don't even want to live any of them today. Before he finished speaking, he flashed his body and rushed towards the nearest monk in black robe, slashing his sword and stabbing his throat. The monk was trapped by the spirit and his power could not move. He could only watch the tip of the sword approaching, and screamed and killed his life on the spot. Get me apart! Break it for me! The middle-aged man roared and his body was swept wildly. The mid-stage cultivation of the foundation exploded with all his strength, and he forced a few spirits to detonate. He swung his long halberd and slashed towards Haoyu. Haoyu's eyes turned cold, and his divine eyes instantly saw through the opponent's attacking ring. His side flashed, and at the same time, his fingers were sealed. The spirit condensed again, directly sucking the opponent's wrist, and the long halberd was defeated on the spot. He took advantage of the situation and went up, slashed his sword and stabbed the other party's chest, and blood spurted out. How, maybe? The middle-aged man widened his eyes and his face fell unwillingly. In the mid-stage cultivation of the sacred Prime Minister, he had no strength to help him in front of this murder. The other monks in black robe had already been shocked and were tempted to seek a gift, but Haoyu had no expression on his face and had no choice but to get up and fall. After a while, the whole mountain was covered with blood, and all 7 or 8 strong men in the prime period were killed by him. Who? Haoyu half kneeled on the ground, gasping heavily. His body's spiritual power was almost exhausted, and his killing was also disintegrated due to the consumption of the spirit stone. Although he successfully fought against the strong enemy, this battle consumed him a lot. If it weren't for Yaling's elixir support, he wouldn't have been able to end up. Lin Feng, are you okay? Yaling walked over, her face pale, but her eyes were filled with shock. She had never seen such a terrifying method. A disciple in the condensation realm could even kill the middle stage of the foundation. This was simply a sausage to the sky in the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. It's okay, thank you for delaying the time. Haoyu stood up reluctantly, took out a spiritual pill from the middle of his life, and his spiritual power slowly recovered. He glanced at the ground and quickly plundered their bags, and found that there were a lot of medium-grade spirit stones and several magic weapons inside, which were obviously the elites sent by Xingxiong. These people mentioned the leader of Zheng. Lin Feng, what kind of enemy did you provoke? Yaling couldn't help but ask, full of curiosity. Haoyu was silent for a moment, and finally said in a low voice, Sister, I can't say anything more, but these people are indeed imprisoning me. In the future, this kind of pursuit will continue. If you are tired of you, I will feel uneasy. TSK, what do you mean? Are you tired or not? Yaling slammed her hand and said indifferently, Yaling, is not a person who is afraid of trouble. How can you be so bad about your skills? We are still afraid of who will come. But you have to agree to me, don't take it alone, and come to me if you have any trouble. Haoyu felt warm and said, Okay, if you need it, I will definitely not recommend it. The static of this war quickly surprised the high-level Qingyan sect. Several old men rushed to the back mountain and saw the earth's bodies, which was shocked. When he learned that Haoyu was the only one who was responsible for it, he was even more stunned, calling him a Jingfa genius. Some old man even proposed on the spot, promoting him as a core disciple and enjoying the best resources in the sect. However, Haoyu politely declined this proposal. He knew that although the Qingyan sect was small, it was full of people and had many eyes. Since Jin Xiong's strength could be found here, it would be obvious that his conduct had been exposed, and continuing to stay in the sect would only bring more trouble. That night, he bid farewell to Yaling and decided to leave Qingyan's sect and find an opportunity to revenge alone. Lin Feng, are you really going to leave? Yaling stood in front of the mountain gate, her eyes slightly red, and she was holding a bottle of freshly elixir in her hand. It's much more dangerous outside than the Zongmen, you are alone. Sister, I have something I have to do. Haoyu smiled, took the pill, and said in a low voice, thank you for your care these days. If you have any trouble, I will see you again. Yaling bit her lip and finally stopped trying to keep her. She just glared at him fiercely, remember what you said, don't die. Haoyu clicked his head and turned away, and his back gradually disappeared into the night. After leaving Qingyan sect, Haoyu hid his name and turned to a ruin along the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. This is another secret point of the Haoyu family that year. Although the family was destroyed, some of the inheritance may be left behind. If it can be retrieved, it will be of great help to his cultivation and revenge. The ruins are located in a deserted valley, surrounded by thin spirits and few people are scattered. Haoyu used the divine eyes of the Taoist temple and quickly found a secret entrance to the magic method. Although this magic method is broken, its internal structure is extremely complex. If it were not for the blessing of his divine eyes, he would not be able to see through it. Is this a sending room? Haoyu's two eyes flashed with golden light, and quickly deduced the function of the room in his brain. He carefully practiced the air technique. After injecting spiritual power, a glimmer of light flashed and his figure disappeared from the spot in an instant. The next moment, he appeared in an underground secret room. The spiritual atmosphere in the secret room is dense, the four walls are engraved with ancient martyr runes, and a stone platform is also placed in the center, on which are several martyrs of extremely high quality and a broken martyr scriptures are placed. Sky-level spirit stone? And 9-turn Tianganjian? Haoyu's eyes flashed with ecstasy. This classic records a top-level killing camp, which is far more powerful than his current killing camp. If it can be successfully cultivated, it will be enough to threaten the powerful people in the later stage of the Kaiji. And those sky-level spirit stones are the most excellent materials for cloth, which is enough to give him another level of strength. However, just as Haoyu was about to put away the objects, a light wave suddenly came from a corner of the secret room. He turned around suddenly, and the eyes of the Taoist god opened, and he found that there was a miniature magic hidden on the wall, and there seemed to be an image sealed inside. He carefully cracked the art, and the image slowly emerged. A middle-aged man covered in blood appeared in the picture, which was a very similar image to his father. You heir, if you can see this image, it means you have escaped a disaster. The middle-aged man's voice was heavy, with sadness in his eyes. Jin Xiong is ambitious. He is not only for the spirit stone mining, but also for the deep secret of the mine. There is an ancient beast hidden there, saying that it is related to the most powerful method in the fairyland. Remember, if you want revenge, you must find the beast and master the power. Otherwise, Jin Xiong is not attacked. The image came to an abrupt end. Haoyu stood there in a daze, thinking thousands of times in his brain. He didn't expect that there was such a big secret behind the spirit stone mine, ancient zodiac. The strongest way. All of this made his path to revenge clearer and more difficult. Jin Xiong. I will reveal it with my own hands. Haoyu clenched his fists and a raging flame ignited in his eyes. He put away the objects in the secret room and quickly left the ruins. He had made up his mind the next step was to dive back to the vicinity of the Spirit Stone mine and find the traces of the ancient zodiac. As the night wind blows, Haoyu's figure disappears into the vast wilderness. Although his strength has improved, it is still insignificant compared to Xingqiang's great power. However, this counterattack of the enemy made him more confident in his way of fighting, and also made the small force around him notice this mysterious genius of fighting. A bigger storm is quietly curling. The night was dark, and the black cloud mountain where the spirit mine was located was covered by a heavy fog. The light of the Spirit Stone was hidden from the mountains, like stars in the dark, attracting countless greedy eyes. Haoyu was wearing a black robe and stood on the head of a secret mountain outside the mountain. His eyes were filled with golden light and his eyes were open with all his strength. The scene far away was clearly visible in his eyes. In the core of the mountain, Xingqiang's efforts have long since built this place into a bucket-like fortress. The black evil Tianro in the Weishan Gallery emits a cold black light, and the spirit flows inside the gallery like a net, hiding countless killers. Outside the courtyard, hundreds of monks came back to patrol the logic. The lowest cultivation was also full of the air condensation realm. In the core area, there were even a few strong people in the base stage who were sitting in the town, with a strong atmosphere. Xingqiang, you will indeed be here without any leakage, Haoyu said in a low voice, clenching his fists slightly. The picture of the family door appeared in the brain again, and the blood and fire that night made the hatred in his heart burn like a flame. He knew that this battle was not only for the purpose of regaining the mine, but also the first tough battle on his way to revenge. In the past few days, Haoyu was lying near the mountain, lying on the divine eyes of the Taoist temple to carefully observe the structure of the Haisha Tianro. Although this big man is powerful, in his eyes, every point of the spiritual flow and every weak line are hidden. He discovered that there was a spiritual exchange point in the southeast corner of the Enfa, which was slightly tired due to the long-term transformation. If we could break through here, we might tear a gap. It is impossible to just mess with me alone. I must lay out a killing force, lead them out and then break them one by one. Haoyu quickly outlined the plan in his brain. He took out the sky-level spirit stones obtained from the ruins from the bag, which were enough to support him to lay out more powerful weapons. Afterwards, he began to lay the foundations of the secret site outside the mountain, preparing a one silk crack and a thunder flame crack. Just as he buried the last stone, a familiar wave of spirit suddenly came from a distance. Haoyu had a snail of eyebrows and a divine eye swept, and he found a figure in a light green dress approaching him sneakily. Yaling? Why did she come? Haoyu was shocked, quickly calmed down and hid behind a huge rock. After a while, Yaling really appeared nowhere, holding the small elixir in her hand, with a smug smile on her face. Hey, Lin Feng, don't hide it. I know you're here. Yaling shouted in a low voice. Then she looked around and saw no one following her. She quickly walked to the huge rock and stared at Haoyu. You guys, you just leave, I've been looking for it for a long time. I heard that you were coming to the Spirit Stone Mineral, and I guess you must do something big, so I'll come to help you. Haoyu stood up helplessly and said with a brow, Sister, this is too dangerous. Xingqiang's strength is not something you can handle. You should go back. Go back? There is no door. Yaling snorted, took out a small cloth bag from the bottom of her body, and stuffed it into Haoyu's hand. Here, this is the spirit-gathering explosion pill that I have worked overtime these days. It can make your spirit violent 30% in a short time, and there are also a few bottles of sustaining life golden pill that can hold a life at the critical moment. If you want to deal with Xingqiang's old fortune, what can I do if I don't help me? Haoyu took the cloth bag and realized the spirit of the pills very high quality, especially the spirit-gathering and explosion pills, which made him feel a little nervous. He was silent for a moment, and finally said, Okay, since you insist, let's go together. But don't act without permission if you hear me. No problem. Yaling patted her chest with a smile, then looked at the ground curiously. What new method is this? It looks more complicated than what you used in the back mountain before. Haoyu briefly explained the structure of the killing environment, and then hid his figure with Yaling, quietly waiting for the time. It was darker in the night, and when the monks patrolling the rules changed their shifts, the defense around the craft was slightly relaxed, which was a good way to move. Just now, Haoyu shouted softly, and with his hands sealed, the killing of thousands of silk was the first to start. Within 100 feet of square meter, the spirit turned into countless fine pieces, and rushed towards the weak point in the southeast corner of the Yen Dharma like a living thing. The spirit wire collided with the spirit network of the Haishatian Royan, making a harsh friction sound. The spirit node in the southeast corner really began to move, and the light shook slightly. Who is this person? The monks in the abdomen quickly noticed the strangeness. 10 disciples from the condensation realm quickly rushed over, and their power rushed to try to practice the art of replenishing the abdomen. But they just stepped into the verge of the sieve killing, and were snatched by the sieve, and their sings came one after another. The first step is successful. Haoyu sneered, his fingers moved again, and the thunder flames exploded and the attack of the storm was started. The spirit in the ambient condensed into an endless ball of thunder and flames, heading towards the gap in the ambient magic. The explosion sounded deafening. A wide crack was finally torn apart in the southeast corner of the black evil Tianro Bay. The spirit leaked out and the power of the ambient magic was greatly reduced. Absolutely. Tell the elders of the celestial masters. The monks and the celestial masters were panicked, and the signal symbols rose up from the sky. Soon, 3 elders of the early stage of the celestial masters brought dozens of elite soldiers to the direction where Haoyu was. It's just right. Haoyu's eyes were full of golden light, and his divine eyes instantly saw through the other party's formation and power flow. He quickly adjusted the structure of the killing garrison, and the spirit and thunder fire intertwined to form a death network, which would kill dozens of cultivators in the front instantly, and blood stain the mountain path. Is this a wizard? The head-in-law's face changed drastically. The magic weapon in his hand shook, and the power turned into a shield to try to resist the invasion of the spirit. But under Haoyu's control, Wan Zi was extremely flexible. The silk slid over the shield and pierced directly into his veins, causing him to sweat in a cold sweat. Go together. Kill this boy. Another old man roared angrily, and led the remaining people toward Haoyu, and his spiritual attack rushed down like a heavy rain. Haoyu's body flashed, and he used the eyes of the Taoist god to determine the attack path, and he reluctantly avoided several fatal blows, but the spirit inside his body was consumed very quickly, and the maintenance of the Taoist method began to be difficult. Lin Feng, take the pill. At the critical moment, Yaling released a spiritual explosion pill from her hidden place. Haoyu caught it and quickly took it. The inner power of his body instantly exploded, and the power of the magic power increased again. Come again. Haoyu bit his teeth tightly, and his hands sealed, and his spirit was like a crazy snake dancing, trapping another elder, and then slamming the sword, pouring the spirit into it, directly piercing the other party's chest. The blood sprayed, and the enemy soldiers were greatly depressed and retreated. In this battle, Haoyu shocked the entire scene with the power of the killing. In less than half an hour, more than 100 monks guarding the southeast corner were killed in a mess, leaving only a few severely injured. Emperor Suo fled back to the ground. Haoyu took advantage of the crack and returned a small piece of mineral control in the southeast corner, and quickly collected dozens of medium-quality spirit stones as a resource for the subsequent cloth. Xingxiong subordinates, but that's the case. Haoyu gasped heavily, half-kneeled on the ground, holding the spirit stone he had just collected, his eyes full of coldness. But he knew that this was just the beginning and the real strong enemy had not yet appeared. Lin Feng, we have to go quickly. The cracks in the air won't be too long. The supporters will arrive in no time. Yaling ran over, her face turned pale, and she was holding several bottles of elixir in her hand. It seemed that the battle just now made her consume a lot. Haoyu clicked and was about to retreat. A terrifying wave of spirit suddenly came from a distance, rolling over like a landslide. With a swept of the divine eyes of the air, his pupils suddenly shrank, he could only see the depth of the air. A middle-aged man in a golden robe came in the air, and the giant war in his hand scattered the power of destroying the sky and the earth. It was Jingxiong himself. Jingxiong. Haoyu gritted his teeth and felt a huge hatred in his eyes. The picture of the family door appeared again, making him almost lose his mind. "Little boy, it's you." Jingxiong's eyes swept over Haoyu like a knife, and a silent smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "The little trick of Haoyu's family. Did you not expect that you would still be alive and dare to come and snatch my mine? Today, I will let you die without a burial place." Before he finished speaking, Jingxiong fought in his hand, and his power turned into a 100-foot shadow and smashed it hard towards Haoyu. Before the shadow arrived, the ground had been pressed out of several cracks, and the spirit was so violent that it was suffocating. Haoyu's heart was tightened, and his divine eyes opened with all their might, instantly seeing through the weakness of the shadow, but with his current cultivation, he could not resist this blow. "Hide!" Yaling was shocked, and released a golden elixir for life, and pushed Haoyu at the same time. Haoyu gritted his teeth and slammed his body. The shadow wiped his body and smashed it down. A 10-foot deep pit was shattered on the ground, and the gravel was flying. Haoyu's arm was slashed with blood, and the pain was so painful that it was sweating. The gap in spirit power is too big. He is a strong Jindan realm, and I can't even catch it. Haoyu was secretly surprised and quickly surrendered the Jindan for his life, and he was forced to calm down. He knew that Jingxiong's cultivation was far beyond the scope he could currently be in line, and fighting hard was only a dead end. "Humph, I can hide." Jingxiong sneered, and the battle was high again, and the power condensed into a stronger attack, locking Haoyu's breath. This time, Haoyu even felt that his soul was suppressed, and even his movements became extremely difficult. "Lin Feng, use this." Yaling gritted her teeth, took out a red pill from the bottom of her hair and sprayed it on Haoyu. "This is the blood-burning pill, which can explode its potential in a short time, but there will be a backlash in the future. Please be careful." Haoyu took the elixir and took it directly without any hesitation. The next moment, the inner spirit of the body burst like a boiling tide, and the golden light of the divine eyes of the Aquarius was even more dazzling. He quickly sealed the seal, and the remaining killing was urged with all his strength. The spirit and the thunder fire formed a final defense line, barely holding Jingxiong's second shot. "A little trick to carve the skull." Jingxiong snorted disdainfully, and with a swipe of the battle, the power rushed wildly, directly shattering the murder. Haoyu and Yaling were shocked for several feet at the same time, blood overflowing from the corners of their mouths. The backlash of the blood-burning pill made Haoyu's body blood swell, and he almost stood unsteady. "Let's go!" Haoyu bit his teeth tightly, pulled Yaling and ran away. He knew that there was only one way to die for the continued battle, and when the urgent task was to save his life, he would fight again tomorrow. "Want to run? It's not that easy." Jingxiong's eyes were so fierce that he was killed. His figure flashed, and his speed was amazing. He caught up in the blink of an eye. Haoyu felt nervous and quickly took out the last few sky-level spirit stones from the bag, stamped them with both hands, laying a temporary miscus explosion behind him, trying to delay the other party's pace. The air method was activated, and the fog and thunder fire exploded at the same time, barely blocking Jingxiong for a moment. But with his practice, this kind of scheming method could not trap him at all. After a war, the scheming method instantly collapsed, and Haoyu and Yaling's figures disappeared deep in the mountains. "Humph, you're running fast." Jingxiong stood there, his eyes swept around coldly, and then snorted coldly, "I want to see how many times you can hide. Come on, strengthen your mineral defense, and even dig 3 feet into the ground. You have to find this kid." At the deepest point of the mountain, Haoyu and Yaling stumbled and fled to a secret cave. "Lin Feng, are you okay?" Yaling took out the last bottle of erectile dysfunction pills from the cold and stuffed them into Haoyu's hand. The sound was full of worry. "I can't die." Haoyu smiled hard and took the elixir, and his spirit recovered slowly. He sat down against the wall of the cave, his eyes flashed with a hint of unwillingness. "Jingxiong's real power is indeed beyond my expectations. In this battle, although some of the mines were returned, it was still far away. Yaling bit her lip and said in a low voice, "You are already very bad. With the cultivation of the condensation realm, you can escape under the Jindan realm and change to someone else. It's already gone. But what should I do next? Jingxiong will definitely not let you go." Haoyu was silent for a moment, his eyes gradually became firm. The images left by his father mentioned that there are ancient zodiacs in the depths of the mine, which is related to the strongest way of life. If I could find zodiacs, maybe I could gain enough power to fight against Jingxiong. In the urgent need, it is to continue to zodiacs and find zodiacs. Yaling clicked a little, then took out a small jade bottle from the bottom and sent it to Haoyu. "This is the last few spiritual pills to keep for the key moments. I will go back to Qingyun sect to find out the news. If there is any trace, I will tell you immediately." "Thank you, my sister." Haoyu felt warm after receiving the jade bottle. He knew that although this battle was frustrated, it also made him more aware of his shortcomings. Jingxiong's strength forced him to grow at the fastest speed. The night wind blows through the cave, bringing a sense of silence. Haoyu sat on his knees, closed his eyes and adjusted his breath, and kept recalling the details of his fight with Jingxiong in the Sea of Brain. The divine eyes of the Aquarius deduced the stronger killing structure. His figure was lonely and resolute in the dark, as if foreshadowed that a more intense battle of revenge was about to come. The night was as dark as ink, and the spirit in the cave wafted slightly. Haoyu sat on his knees on a rough bluestone, holding the broken classic 9-round Tiangang gang obtained from the family ruins in his hand. His two eyes were golden light and the divine eyes of the aura opened with all their might. The ancient aura recorded in the classics were constantly deduced in the sea of mind. Every spiritual flowing line and the layout of each aura were dismantled so well by him. There was a low sound in the air, as if the spirit was resonating, indicating that his cultivation method had begun to take shape. Since the battle with Jingxiong, Haoyu has been hiding in a secret place deep in the Haoyu Mountains with heavy injuries, and has been shutting down the repairs for 3 months. During these 3 months, he almost never sleeps. With the elixir left by Yaling and the spirit stones obtained from the mineral, he cultivated a breakthrough from the sphere of the condensation realm to the early stage of the foundation, and his spiritual power was even more thick than that of the same level monk. But he knew that this was still far away. Jingxiong was the ultimate strongman in the golden elixir realm. He could not revenge even if he had a single cultivation to make a breakthrough. "The eloquence of my father, the strongest way," Haoyu said in a low voice, with a flash of determination in his eyes. The ancient tragedy mentioned by his father in the image has always been a thorn in his heart. Although he could not dive deep into the mind to find a trace, this book 9-turn Tianganjian gave him new hope. This squad is called the top-level killing of the sky, which is powerful enough to shake the golden elixir realm. If it can be achieved, it may become his trump card for revenge. The core of this method is the circulation of the 9-turning spiritual aura and the detonation of the power of the Tiangang. If I can integrate the self-created 10-piece killing parapets into it, the power can be further increased. Haoyu's fingers flew into the seal, and the spirit stone in front of him emitted a faint light, and the spirit turned into countless fine patterns, outlining a complex pattern in the air. His head was sweating, and his mind was almost exhausted, but his eyes were filled with excitement. During these 3 months, he was not only practicing the art of cultivation, but also repeatedly pondering how to combine the ancient abbeys in the family's inheritance with his own abbey divine eyes to create an unprecedented murder. He named this new courtyard Tianro Age of the World, which means the power of the Tianro Earth network in the world. This method is based on the 9-turn Tiangang ambient, integrates the spirit of the 10,000 silk killings, and then uses the explosive power of the thunder flame breaking, which is a masterpiece of the cultivation of his Taoist path. It's done! At one moment, Haoyu suddenly opened his eyes, the stone in his hand shone brightly, and the shape of the silhouette in front of him finally calmed down, emitting a powerful force that destroyed the sky and the earth. He let out a breath and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Tian Le Shengxi, if he can really set up Jingxiong, what are you going to give him?" However, Haoyu also knew that although this magic method was strong, it was extremely terrifying to consume spiritual power and divine consciousness. With his current initial stage of cultivation, he might even be backfired by strong cloth, let alone against Jin Xiong's powerful powers. He needs more spirit stones, stronger cultivation, and even key moments to help. At this moment, a light wave of power suddenly came outside the cave. Haoyu had a snail of eyebrows and a slight look in his eyes. He found a familiar figure approaching sneakily. He quickly calmed down his breath, tightened his sword, and shouted in a low voice, "Who?" "Hey, it's me, don't act." A crisp sound came out, and then Yeling poked her head out of the cave, with a handsome ancient spirit smile on her face. She was holding a bulging cloth bag in her hand and was still covered with some soil on her body, which seemed to have been traveling all the way. "Yeling? How did you find this?" Haoyu relaxed his voice, put away the slap, and felt helpless in his words. It's not because you are hiding too deeply that I took a lot of trouble to hear your whereabouts." Yeling curled her lips, walked into the cave, and threw the cloth bag to Haoyu. "Here, this is the elixir I have worked overtime in the past few months. There is the ultimate spiritual gathering pill that can make your spirit surge 50% in a short time, and the blocking pill can help you to hinder the mid-stage of the foundation, or even higher. In addition, I also stole several high-quality spiritual stones in the sect. Have you clothed it?" Haoyu took the cloth bag and realized his mind. He found that there were indeed several bottles of elixirs and several pieces of top-grade spirit stones that were filled with depression. The quality made him feel a little moved. He looked up at Yeling, with a flash of gratitude in his eyes. "Sister, why are you always helping me? These things are also very precious to you, right?" Yeling curled her lips and said indifferently, "Wow, isn't I help you because you are a wise man? Besides, Jin Xiong's old man is not a good thing. He heard that he has recently summoned several powerful men from the Nine Immortal Realm to prepare to wipe out you in the end. There are more than 10 powerful people in the Jindan realm. How can you bear it alone? With me here, you can give you elixirs." Haoyu heard several words Golden Dan realm power, his pupils slightly shrank, and his fists were tightly clamped. He knew that Jin Xiong was so desperate that he wanted to kill him, but this was just his wish. Since he could not hide, he would fight head-on, and use this Tianluo Shishi to fight all the enemies online. "Sister, thank you very much." Haoyu stood up and his eyes were settled. "Since Jin Xiong is coming, let him come. I have cultivated a new ambus, enough to make him pay for the price. But before that, I need to attack the mid-stage of the foundation to improve my spiritual power, otherwise the ambus will not be able to fully exert power. What are you waiting for? Take the pill quickly, I'll help you with the method." Yeling patted her chest, took out a bottle of breaking pill from her cloth bag, and stuffed it into Haoyu's hand. "This pill is extremely strong in nature, and there will be a pain when it hits the realm. You can endure it." Haoyu clicked his head, sat down with his knees, and took the breaking border pill. The next moment, a hot medicinal force exploded in his body, and the spirit slammed the veins like a flood. The pain caused his veins to burst out and his cold sweat flowed. But he bit his teeth tightly, and the eyes of the Taoist divine eyes opened, guiding the orderly flow of medicine, and the spirit force slightly gathered towards the dantian, and the bottle horn in the early stage of the foundation began to move. Yeling stood by, staring at Haoyu tightly, holding several bottles of elixir in her hand, and preparing for sudden attacks at any time. As time passed, the spirit waves around Haoyu became stronger and stronger, and even a low sound of thunder came from the cave, like thunder was pouring out. "Break!" At one moment, Haoyu suddenly shouted softly, and the inner power of his body poured out like a dam, and the wall of the middle stage of the foundation was finally broken. His energy was violent, his power was almost doubled, and his eyes were even more golden, revealing a sense of power that destroyed the sky and the earth. "It's done!" Yeling clapped her hands and smiled, and hurriedly passed a bottle of spirit-gathering pill. "Regain your spirit quickly, break through, and your body is still unstable, don't leave any trouble." Haoyu took the pill, and after taking it, he closed his eyes and adjusted his breath, and his inner spirit quickly stabilized. He opened his eyes quietly, felt unprecedented power, and his confidence increased greatly. In the middle stage of the Qiji, plus Tianluo Shishi, Xingxiong, in this battle, I want you to lose blood. After breaking through the realm, Haoyu no longer felt hesitant and decided to take the initiative to attack. He knew that Xingxiong summoned thousands of powerful people to suppress the enemy and had great force. If he was defended, he would only be suppressed without any resilience. Only by taking the initiative to challenge and leading them to come, and with the help of Tianluoshi City, can we achieve a plan. Sister, I plan to dive into the mine, launch the Tianluoshi, and lead Xingxiong to attack. You stay in the back and prepare for support at any time. If the situation is not right, retreat immediately. Haoyu said in a low voice, his temperament is unquestionable. What? Lead them to attack? You're crazy. Yaling widened her eyes, her face full of dissatisfaction. The old man Xingxiong is wearing all-powerful Jindan realm. How can you withstand it in the middle stage of the foundation? Haoyu smiled, with a chill flashing in his eyes. I never thought of resisting. The power of Tianluo Shishi Temple is enough to trap the Golden Pill realm. If they can be introduced into the temple, even thousands of powerful people will make them come and go. Yaling saw that he had decided, and stopped talking, but just gritted her teeth and said, okay, then I'll go with you. I've brought the elixir. At the critical moment, I might be able to help you. A few days later, Haoyu and Yaling lurked outside the Haoyu mountain and chose a spiritual valley as a place for the law to lay out. The terrain here is narrow, easy to defend and difficult to attack, and is suitable for the development of large-scale methods. Haoyu took out all the spirit stones, including the few top-grade spirit stones brought by Yaling, and began to set up Tianroshiwen with Yali as the center. He sealed his hands with his hands, his eyes were full of golden light, and his brain deduced the position of each base. The spirit turns into countless fine pieces, hidden in every inch of the land in the valley. The power of thunder flame condenses into a hidden explosion point. The circulating structure of the 9-turn Tiangang Gate connects the entire grid into a perfect killing network. The process of placing a lot of effort was exhausted. Haoyu's face gradually turned white and his inner spirit almost dried up, but he bit his teeth and forced himself to stop. This method is too terrifying. Yaling stood aside, feeling the power emitted by Hidden in the valley, and couldn't help but hit a cold man. Although she did not understand the method of qi, she could also see that the strong intention of this method of qi is enough to make anyone who step into it go unrest. It's done. Haoyu finally buried the last stone, let out a breath, half-kneeled on the ground, gasping for heavy breath. He took the spirit-gathering pill that Yaling came from, and his spirit slowly recovered. Then he stood up and looked coldly in the direction of the mine. Next, it's time to lead the snake out of the hole. That night, Haoyu fell into the mine alone, deliberately exposing his breath, and at the same time, he used his spiritual power to condense a provocative sound, which filled the entire mountain. Xingxiong, the young leader of the Haoyu family, is here. You failed to kill me 3 months ago, and today I will come to take your life. If you have any trouble, come to the Black Cloud Valley to fight, otherwise, you will be a turtle and a turtle. The sound was thunderous, and the monks in the mine were shocked, and Xingxiong was even more furious. He stood in the hall, snatched his hand, and his eyes were filled with murder. What a little boy from the Haoyu family, how dare he take the initiative to come to the door? Come, summon all the powerful forces in the Golden Elixir realm, and go to the Black Cloud Valley with me. I want to see what kind of atmosphere this little mess has. In less than half an hour, Xingxiong led 10 powerful people in the Golden Elixir realm, as well as thousands of elite monks in the base stage in the Condensation realm, and killed them to the Black Cloud Valley in a vast and powerful way. The power waves cover the sky and the sun, and the strong air makes the entire mountain shake. Haoyu stood at the entrance of the Eye Valley, feeling the terrifying pressure, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. It's just right. He sniffed softly and quickly retreated into the deep area of Yaling, and at the same time he gave the voice to Yaling, Sister, prepare the elixir, and support it at any time after the battle begins. Yaling hid in the secret cave on the side of the Yegu, holding several bottles of ultimate elixir in her hand, tightly pointing. Don't worry, I'll be on standby anytime, be careful. A moment later, Jing Xiong's army arrived at the entrance of the ice valley. He looked around and saw Haoyu standing alone in the deep corner of the yacht valley. He immediately sneered, "Little boy, I really dare to come and die. Today, I will let you see what the absolute power is." Before he finished speaking, he slammed the battle in his hand, and his power turned into a 100-foot shadow and smashed it hard towards Haoyu. 10 famous Jinan realm powers took action at the same time, and their power attacks rushed down like heavy rain. Their atmosphere was as strong as if they wanted to turn the entire Yaji Valley into flat ground. Haoyu's eyes turned cold, and his divine eyes opened with all their might, instantly seeing through all the attacks. He flashed his body, avoided several fatal blows, and at the same time, he sealed his hands with his hands and shouted in a low voice, "Tian Luosheng, get up." The next moment, the spirits in the Eye Valley were storming, and countless spirits emerged from the ground, covering Jing Xiong's army like a celestial net. The killing of the soul and the spirit is incomparable, and hundreds of cultivators in the air condensation realm instantly formed blood fog, and their anger was heard to the sky. The thunder flame explosion was detonated, and the firelight intertwined with the thunder, and the monks in the base stage could not resist and fell in large quantities. Is this a method of fighting? Jing Xiong's face changed, and he fought and slashed several spiritual threads, but more spiritual threads quickly rolled in, and even his spiritual shield was pierced, bringing intense pain. He roared angrily, "Little mess, do you think this method can trap me? Break it for me." 10 famous Jinan realm masters took action at the same time, and their power rushed wildly, trying to tear open the way. But the 9-turn structure of Time Roshishia is extremely exquisite. The more they slam, the faster their energy circulates, and the stronger their desire to kill them. In just a moment, thousands of monks were killed, and blood flowed into a river, and the shadows in the valley were like cultivators. Haoyu stood in the center of the army, with his hands sealed, his spirit almost exhausted, and his face was as white as paper. He knew that the current method was not enough to kill Jing Xiong and others in a short while, and he had to increase his power. "Sister, elixir." He sniffed softly, and Yaling quickly released a bottle of the ultimate spiritual pill from her hidden place. "Jing Xiong, die." Haoyu bit his teeth tightly, and a huge hatred ignited in his eyes. With a finger, all the thunder flame explosions in the core of the art were detonated. The sea of fire and thunder covered Jing Xiong and others. Jing Xiong roared and rushed in a row, and withstood several explosions, but his figure was already showing a bit of a wolf. "Haoyu family, I underestimate you." Jing Xiong's eyes flashed with a hint of jealousy, and then he snorted coldly, "But do you think this can kill me? I'm delusional." His body violently exploded, and the power of the Golden Pill Realm exploded. He broke a corner of the magic and brought several Golden Pill Realm powerful forces out. Haoyu saw the situation and felt nervous, knowing that this was the last chance. He quickly took another breaking pill from Yaling, and the spirit and medicine intercoursed. The pain made him almost faint, but he held it with amazing willpower, and sealed it with his hands to pour the last piece of spiritual power into the air. The world of Tianluo is finally shocked. Haoyu growled, and the spiritual circulation in the air technique reached extreme. The power of the 9-turn heavenly gang exploded, and the power of the sky and earth was destroyed, and the entire Yakura was a treasure. The spirit and Lei Yan collided to form a death network and rushed towards Jing Xiong and others. At this moment, Haoyu's ambient cultivation reached the peak, and the heavenly creative power made Tian Luoxian burst out with unprecedented power. Although Jing Xiong and others are strong in the Golden Dan realm, they are also insignificant in front of this place. The sound of yelling and explosions spread across the sky, and the blood fog in the valley spreads, and thousands of powerful people were trapped and killed, without any escape. Haoyu half kneeled on the ground, his spirit was exhausted, and his eyes were dark. But he gritted his teeth and stared at the center of the craft, waiting for the final result. Yaling ran over, held him tightly, holding the last bottle of successive life golden pill in her hand, and prepared for the worst situation at any time. The night wind blew, and the bloody smell in the valley did not dissipate for a long time. Haoyu's revenge battle is about to usher in the final battle. His figure is lonely and determined in the dark, as if foreshadowed a life of revelation. The smoke in the valley dissipated, the blood and spirit intertwined, and the air was filled with heavy fishy air. The final blow of Tainro Shishiwan swept over like the collapse of the sky and the earth. The death network formed by Lei Yan and the spiritual core swallowed up all the powerful powers led by Jing Xiong. The ground of the Yacht Valley was blown out of countless deep pits, and gravel and limbs were scattered all over the ground. The once arrogant and powerful people were left with only a dead silence. Haoyu half kneeled in the center of the scepter, his body was almost exhausted, his face was as white as paper, and a silk of blood was overflowing from the corners of his mouth. His eyes were still flashing with a faint golden light, and the divine eyes of the Tao locked the core of the art, trying to confirm Jing Xiong's final fate. Yaling held him, holding the last bottle of continuing life golden pill in her hand, and asked in a low voice, "Lin Feng." "No, Haoyu, are you okay? Is that old man and Jing Xiong dead?" Haoyu gasped heavily and did not answer, but just stood up slowly and swept across the depths of the Sun Valley like a knife. The power of the sect is still there, and the spirit slowly dissipates, revealing the mess in the center of the sect. In the bloody ruins, a figure wearing a golden robe and covered with scars suddenly caught my eyes. Jing Xiong was not dead yet. Cough. Cough. Jing Xiong half kneeled on the ground, the giant war bell in his hand had broken into two pieces, the spiritual shield on his body was broken, and the blood flowed down from his wounds, dyeing the golden robe. His breath was extremely weak, and he was obviously reincarnated under the extreme blow of Tian Luo Shirshir. However, the powerful cultivation of the golden pill realm forced him to resist this fatal blow, and his eyes were still flickering in resentment. "The little boy from Haoyu family." Jing Xiong gritted his teeth and slashed, his voice was dark and quiet. "I didn't expect that you could force me to this point. This method is indeed not simple, but do you think this can kill me? I'm delusional." Before he finished speaking, Jing Xiong slapped the ground with a sudden palm, and the remaining spirit in his body exploded like a flood, and the power of the golden pill realm rolled out again. He was full of golden light, and he even tore off the wild soul of Tian Luo's world. He stood up and slammed his hand and approached Haoyu. Each step made the ground tremble slightly, indicating that although he was seriously injured, he still had enough strength to fight. Haoyu's pupils shrank and his heart became tight. He never expected that Jing Xiong could still stand up after such a terrifying murder. "My own power is almost exhausted, and my method is unable to be activated again due to the exhaustion of the spirit stone. If you fight hard, the calculation will be almost zero. Haoyu, take the pill." Yaling saw this and quickly took out the last bottle of the ultimate spirit-gathering pill from the wind and sent it to Haoyu. At the same time, she said in a low voice, "I have a few more blood-burning pills that can make you explode in a short time, but the backlash is extremely strong. You have to hold it." Haoyu took the pill and took the spirit pill without any hesitation. The inner spirit force recovers slowly like a trickle of flow, but the distance is still far from complete recovery. He gritted his teeth, his eyes closed tightly, and his brain was flying rapidly, and his divine eyes opened with all their might, trying to find the other party's last weakness. "Jing Xiong, you can fill me up and give me a mineral. Today is your death." Haoyu shouted softly, grabbed the sword in his hand, poured his spirit into it, his body flashed, and he actively rushed towards Jing Xiong. He knew that it was impossible to escape, and only by fighting the last piece of power could he revenge the family. "Looking for death?" Jing Xiong sneered, snarled, and his power turned into a shadow and smashed it hard at Haoyu. Although he was seriously injured, his cultivation level in the golden elixir realm was still far beyond Haoyu. Before the shadow arrived, the ground had been pressed out of cracks. Haoyu only felt a suffocating pressure and was swollen. "Hide!" The golden light flashed in Haoyu's eyes, and the Taoist divine eyes instantly saw through the shadow's path, and their figure flashed, and they reluctantly avoided this blow. But the shadow brushed his shoulders, and the powerful impact made his arms numb, blood poured out, and the sword almost broke out. "Hide quickly." Jing Xiong snorted coldly, and stopped, and his power attack rushed down like a heavy rain, forcing Haoyu to retreat. Haoyu was determined by the prediction of the Taoist divine eyes and reluctantly supported it, but the inner spirit was consumed very quickly, and he was hit by the key points several times. Haoyu, blood-burning pill. Yeling saw this and finally couldn't help it. She released a red pill with a red pill, and her voice was filled with anxiety. If you don't fight, you won't have a chance. Haoyu gritted his teeth and took the pill without hesitation. The next moment, the internal blood stormed like a boiling thorn, and the power suddenly rose. The wounded pain was pressed down, and the golden light of the divine eyes of the Tao became even stronger. He growled, his figure suddenly rose, and the sword pierced Xingqiang's chest. The speed was so fast that it almost turned into a shadow. What? Xingqiang was surprised. He didn't expect that Haoyu could still explode in such a battle under such circumstances. He reluctantly lifted the slam to slam the crack, but Haoyu's sword was like a broken bamboo. With the power of the spirit, it pierced his protective spirit. The tip of the sword directly entered his shoulders, and blood spurted out. Ah! Xingqiang roared in pain, slammed and shook Haoyu several feet away. But this blow had made him hurt, his breath became weaker, and he finally felt a little shocked in his eyes. He never expected that his strong golden elixir realm would be forced into the ultimate state by a boy in the middle stage of the foundation. Xingqiang, the family's hatred will be reported today. Haoyu half-kneeled on the ground. The backlash of the blood-burning pill made his internal organs hurt like a knife, but his eyes were not depressed. He stood up with great force, his fingers flew and a flash of light suddenly flashed in the brain. Although the main body of Tianrose has collapsed, there are still remaining spiritual points in the island valley. If it can be reorganized in a while, it may be possible to launch the last strike. Start up! Haoyu shouted softly, and the divine eyes of the air were fully deduced, and both hands led the spirit of the sword, and reorganized a miniature sword around Xingqiang. Although this magic is far less powerful than the power of Tianluo Shishi, the spirit is still extremely profitable and instantly sank Xingqiang's limbs, making him unable to move. You are such a little mess. Xingqiang roared angrily, and the spirit inside his body rushed wildly, trying to destroy the spirit. But he was injured too much, and his spirit was almost exhausted. The spirit penetrated his veins, causing him to sweat coldly, and he couldn't even hold it even when he was in a silence. Go to die. Haoyu's eyes flashed with a flash of determination, dragged the severe wounded slam forward, cut his sword high, poured his spirit into it, and stabbed Xingqiang's throat. This drama condensed all his hatred and unwillingness. The deep blood hatred of the family's door turned into a desperate killing at this moment and could not be defeated. Puff! The sword tip pierced through Xingqiang's throat, and blood poured out like a spring. Xingqiang widened his eyes, his face full of unwillingness and shock, and a low roar came out of his mouth. I'm not willing. Haoyu's family, how could there be such a monster like you? Before he finished speaking, his breath quickly dissipated. The strong Jindan realm finally died here. Haoyu pulled out the sword and stumbled back a few steps. The backlash of the blood-burning pill and the exhaustion of the power made his eyes dark, almost silence. He half-kneeled, his breathing was extremely heavy, but there was a flash of light in his eyes. The family's hatred was finally reported. Haoyu, you did it. Yeling ran over and held Haoyu, her eyes slightly red, and her voice was filled with excitement. She took out the last bottle of sustainable life golden pill from the dead and stuffed it into Haoyu's mouth to help him calm down. Haoyu took the elixir and his spirit recovered slowly and his injuries became more stable. He looked at Xingqiang's body, breathed a sigh of relief, and said in a low voice, "Father, mother, family hatred, I have reported, you can rest in peace." As the night wind blows, the bloody smell in the valley dissipates. Under Yeling's help, Haoyu stood up slowly, his eyes swept over the ground, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. From the escaped boy in the family gate to the now siege of thousands of powerful people, he used his 2 hands to kill a bloody path and grew into the most terrifying wizard in the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. Next, I'll go back to everything that belongs to my Haoyu family. Haoyu said in a low voice, with a hint of determination in his eyes. He knew that although Xingqiang was dead, the spirit mine was still under his control. If he wanted to restore the family in full, all the mines must be repaid. A few days later, Haoyu's injury recovered most of his time, and he led Yaling into the core of Haoyu Mountain. Xingqiang died, the dragons in the mine were headless, and the military was in a low spirit. Haoyu used the insight of the divine eyes of the Taoist eyes to easily see through the weakness of the black evil Tianluo. It took only half a day to destroy the magic method. Young Master Haoyu is back. Xingqiang is dead, it's ours. Some old subordinates in the mine who were loyal to Haoyu's family saw Haoyu and knelt on the ground and bowed excitedly. Although they were suppressed by Xingqiang for many years, they never forgot their old master in their hearts. Now they have seen Haoyu succeed in revenge with the ultimate world, and all the energy is filled with tears. Haoyu let the crowd stand up and said in a deep voice, "From today, the Haoyu family will regain the mining, and all resources will be redistributed. Anyone who is loyal to my family will be rewarded. If anyone disobeys, he will be killed without forgiveness." His voice-clicking lens was powerful, and his unquestionable majesty was heard. The mine was quickly controlled by him. Later, Haoyu went deep into the deepest part of the mine, and used the image traces left by his father, and finally found the hidden ancient zodiac. The spirit inside the wild is so heavy that it almost turns into reality. A stone tablet in the center is full of ancient magic runes, which is a killing ground called the Immortal Garden of Heaven and Heaven. This squat is far beyond the 9-turn Tiangang Gang, and its power is enough to destroy the sky and earth. Haoyu only had a slight sense of the squat, and then felt his divine consciousness, and the squat creation was put on another floor. Father said it right. This is the real way of being extremely powerful. Haoyu murmured, with a flash of heat in his eyes. He knew that if he could cultivate this state, no one would be able to resist the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. Not only could he be able to defend his minerals, but he could also make the Haoyu family the strongest power in the Immortal Realm. After a few months, Haoyu closed his cultivation in the shore, and finally integrated part of the essence of the heavenly Dao Xianya into his body system. His cultivation of the arts was a sudden and rapid development, and his cultivation also successfully broke through to the late stage of the foundation, just one step away from the golden elixir realm. At the same time, he revitalized the Haoyu family with the foundation of the Spirit Stone Mine, recruited various cultivators and small forces from the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm, and quickly became the overlord of the area. Young Master Haoyu killed thousands of enemies in one battle, and Xingqiang's old fortune was slaughtered by him. It's just a story from the Immortal Realm. In the winery and tea house of the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm, countless monks discussed and said to Haoyu's legend. His name is like Thunderbolt, and he became the supreme lever for the wizard. The young monks used him as their goal to compete with each other to learn the wizard. One day, Haoyu stood in the corner of the mine, overlooking the wild valley below, holding a sky-level spirit stone in his hand, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Yaling stood beside him, holding the elixir, and whispered with a smile, "Hey, Haoyu, now you are a big shot in the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm. When will you marry a fairy and spread your leaves for Haoyu's family?" Haoyu was stunned and then laughed, "Sister, don't joke. The family is just getting excited and there are still many things to do. I don't think about love. Tisk, no fucking." Yaling curled her lips and then said seriously, "But seriously, you are now in control of the Spirit Stone and dominating the side. That boy who was covered in blood and escaped from his life that year had long become the overlord of the Immortal Realm. If your parents had spirits in the sky, they would definitely be proud of you." When Haoyu heard this, his eyes were slightly soft. He looked at the sky and said in a low voice, "Yes, the family's hatred has been reported, and the mine has been returned. Haoyu's family has stood firm from here. Father, Mother, I did it." The night wind blows, and the light of the spirit stones in the valley shines on Haoyu's resolute face. From the young man who fled alone that year to the overlord who now controls the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm, he has achieved a rise against the will of heaven with his wisdom and indomitableness. His inner injustice, with the completion of revenge and the rejuvenation of the family, was finally able to be harmonious, and replaced by a more sturdy and wise heart. Haoyu turned around and glanced at the mountains behind him. The flag of Haoyu's family was in the wind. He knew that this land, this spiritual mineral, and the infinite future of the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm would belong to him. And he will also write his own immortal revelation in the name of the strongest guru.